Welcome to episode 29 of the TTC podcast. And Brian, we've got a lot today. We've got to talk about another channel of ours that has hit 1,000 subscribers. Pretty cool
Woohoo!
there. We'll let people know what that's all about because, there's some branding things to kind of just sort through for our listeners. And then you've got a nice mudding adventure story with some ATVs we've started reviewing. And then we're going to close this podcast with a lot of full-size SUV talk, and that is the new Sequoia versus the Armada. I say new Armada, but really ancient Armada.
Just the Armada.
The Armada. It's been the Armada for a long time, or Patrol, if you prefer.
Fair.
And then we'll also dive into our best guesses on the Land Cruiser that allegedly is coming back to the States. What's that going to look like? And we'll dig in all that. But before we do, Brian, we need our listeners' help. We have some now. We joke that we have a handful, and we do have a little bit more than that, of course. We do have a decent amount, but we're trying to get a little bit more out there, and that's where if you review us on Apple Podcast, it helps a ton. Obviously, look, we'll just be honest. We're looking for 5-star reviews. We don't need anything else. We're a 5-star company. So give us 5-star reviews. Leave us a comment. What we're going to do is we're going to, on the next podcast, read one of those comments from a 5-star review, share that with everybody, and let everybody know how good this sucker is. And whoever we read on the air, Brian, they're going to get a nice Texas Truck Channel sticker pack and maybe anything else we can throw in there.
Yeah, maybe some other goodies.
Yeah, who knows? So that's your chance to get that. All you got to do is you don't even have to listen. Just go review us. That's all you got to do. You don't even have to listen. You can turn it off right here. You're welcome. With that, though, Brian, let's dig into our topics. We've got some fun ones. So let's, the first one.
Wait. Did you just gift our viewers the permission to just stop listening to us?
Yeah, they're fine. I do it to you all the time. So
Well,
I'm giving them permission.
Fair.
I mean, people watch our videos. They know I stopped listening to you. So, I mean, it's fair. Okay, so we have, Brian, let's just talk through a little history. We started off as Brake Check Show. In fact, on your podcast, it probably still says Brake Check Show. That's eventually going to change once you and I figure out how the heck we're going to change that. But
right.
We did that with our YouTube channel as well. And what was happening is everybody was finding brake check videos, someone slamming on the brakes and getting rear-ended, which is funny, but doesn't really help people watch what we're trying to make. So we decided we're in Texas. There's a lot of trucks sold here. Let's call it the Texas Truck Channel. But then another thing happened. People started getting mad that we put cars on the truck channel. Like, how stupid can we be? Right? So That's okay. We've been trying to conceive a good idea with this, and so we came up with TTC Cars. That's not what it stands for, but it's Texas Truck Channel Cars. But TTC Cars is another channel we have on YouTube, Brian, and something pretty cool happened there. Let the listeners know what happened there.
Yeah, we finally cracked 1,000 views. And look, we started this last fall, I believe, late last fall. So, we were hoping to hit it by the end of the following year for 1,000 views, and we did sooner than I thought. So that's good. The downside of this channel is it's still not our bread and butter channel. We don't spend as much time on it as we do the truck channel because that's our bread and butter. We have the most following on the truck channel and we get the most views there. And because we're in Texas, like we originally said, we have a bunch of trucks here and we get those in review and SUVs and crossovers. So TTC Cars is really for anything sports car related or the occasional Camry and Prius, which are still high sellers and valid vehicles. So if it's not a crossover, SUV, or truck, we're going to put it there. But let's be a little behind the curtains here. You and I like cars a lot. Don't tell our truck viewers that. We had to put a place for them to live because we still like our Miatas. We still like burnouts. Me especially like our burnouts. We had to keep that alive. So that's what that's there for. And I still love the name Brake Check Show. I think it's a great name. I think actually your son came up with it, Craig, and or one of your daughter, one of your kids did, and I absolutely love it. It just isn't good for SEO. Like you said, you search brake check, and the first thing that comes up is about 4 million car crash videos with dash cam footage. It just doesn't
Which are
work.
Good, but doesn't help us.
Yeah, those are fun too. We enjoy those ourselves, but it doesn't help us generate anything in terms of viewership. So here we are.
Yeah, and you've got a funny saying, or not a funny saying, you're not the only one, but we've used it a lot lately, and that is we got to feed the algorithm. Look, that's just how it works. That's the nature of this. Yes, this is a little inside baseball, maybe a little boring. I don't know, maybe interesting to you, but to feed the algorithm of the monster of YouTube, you've got to have decent SEO. Same thing with podcasting world. That's why we're asking for reviews there and that sort of thing. It's just what it is, and hopefully it's a little less confusing for our viewers. And yeah, like you said, we love cars. And here's what happens. The other inside baseball thing is we get on the list to review all these trucks, and manufacturers give us trucks, SUVs, crossovers, all these fun things, even ATVs because of that good branding.
Mm-hmm.
But they also keep sending us cars.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. The
we
cars never
could,
stopped.
yeah, we could turn them down, but like someone offers you like a Mustang or something like that, okay, yeah,
We're
I'll
gonna
drive
take
this.
it.
Sure, what the heck,
Yeah, of
right?
course.
So, um,
Well, and it
and
was
I think there's,
interesting too because we had some viewers who were like, they would come and go, "Man, never thought I'd find such a good GR86 review on a truck channel." Or they would find, "I never thought I'd see this good of a Camaro review on a truck channel." They're so confused about that. They still like the content, but then we get some truck guys going, "I don't want to see a four-cylinder car on my diesel truck viewing out." It just doesn't fit that narrative. So I understand that, and we're just trying to react to that and also not turn down the things that we still appreciate as well.
or does it fit the narrative? Because you can now get 4-cylinder trucks, be it full size, mid size, or Maverick.
That's a good point. In fact, there's one outside my window right now that, well, it sounds more, well, it doesn't sound very trucky. Let's put it that way.
Mm, fair enough.
Yep.
Okay, Brian, you had a lot of fun this past weekend, and we'll kind of set up here. So part of that Texas Truck Channel thing, we have ATVs now. We talked about it on the last
Mhm.
podcast. At the end of it, we have a Polaris Ranger, side by side, kind of UTV, whatever you call those suckers. And then
Yeah.
we also got an actual just four wheeler, old school, what I call it four wheeler. I guess they're called ATVs now.
Yeah.
And it's a mutter. It's called the High Lifter 750 or 850.
850. Yes.
High
So
Lifter
this thing,
850.
yep.
And that sucker's got a high intake made for mudding. We've had it for about a month, and we've been driving around our neighborhoods, and we're like, well, these paddle tractor tires are kind of silly. What do we do with these? And we know it's designed for mud. The good news is you had full intentions from the get go of getting this sucker, of
Mhm.
mudding it, and boy, did you! So, if you want to go ahead and let the listeners know what happened there, it's quite the story, and I'll laugh at you pretty good. So, go for it.
Yeah. Oh, great. I didn't hear you laugh. I didn't realize you were laughing at me so much, but that's okay.
Laughing
Um,
with you,
okay.
not at
Look,
you.
here's the deal. Before we got on air here, I just sent the apology email to Polaris. So let me explain that a little bit from post this ride. Um, Look, when we were talking to Polaris, this has been in the works for several months now. I think we explained that on the last episode, but basically these things showed up at the house one day. It's the she asked where we're going to ride the ATV, and I said, well, we're targeting this park in Huntsville, Texas, which is just north of Houston. It's known for its mudding. That's a big deal. And I was like, you know what? That's not something we've covered very much. Let's just focus on that. Let's try that out because we have plenty of dirt trails up here, rocky stuff. It's on our hill test. We've done a lot of that. Let's mix it up a little bit. And she goes, oh, I've got the tool for the job covered. And then goes, by the way, let's send you a side by side as well. Great. So that's been great. So we've had both. It's been nice having both. In fact, we've got another outing coming up this weekend with you and I, Craig. We're taking them both out. That's going to be a blast. So, long story short, because of some family issues and some other press trips we've had, this trip we wanted to do mudding about, on the front end of this loan ended up being closer to the tail end of the loan because of scheduling. So it finally happened last weekend, actually. And actually roped in my brother in law to bring his old ATV out to be a support rig and camera rig. And, you know, anyways, so I told him when we got out there, I was like, hey, look, we got to do this for the YouTube. We've got to sync this thing. And Polaris is pretty adamant that we sync it too, but this is what it's made
Hang on,
for.
and sink this thing like the Titanic. You want to sink the sucker.
Oh yeah, yeah, yes. That's well. Apparently, Craig, according to the Googles, that's what letters do. They're about the sinking. Okay, um, and maybe not so much, but that's what we did anyways. So, a little background on the Polaris Sportsman 850 High Lifter. This thing has been out of production for about 5 years. It is just now back in production in 2023. Sorry, 22, but we got a 23 model. So this thing's newly returned. Polaris kind of invented the turnkey mutter from the factory, and now Can-Am's caught up and done their own version. Kawasaki's got a lighter version of it, but they've got one too. And Yamaha's also got a lighter version. But really, it's Can-Am and Polaris that are chasing the mud-specific fire. So this was the daddy of it. We've gotten feedback that the Can-Am might be the leader now, but we haven't ridden that. We can't report on that. But I do want to report on the Polaris. So what makes it special
But
is,
before you get into that, I want to. One thing we've already learned quickly in the ATV world is much like the truck world. There's the Chevy buyer, Ford buyer, Dodge buyer, or whatever,
yep,
and you cannot tell them that there anything else is better. And we've kind of already run into that with Polaris versus Can-Am versus Honda versus anything
right.
else. It's crazy. It might be worse in the ATV world.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it is just, yeah, there's camps. I had no idea it was going to be like this. It is just like Ford and Chevy. I think that's the best way to put it, is Ford and Chevy. I haven't figured out which one's Ford and Chevy between Polaris and Can-Am. Um, I just, some days I'm like, oh yeah, Polaris is definitely the Ford. I'm like, well, I don't know. It seems to relate, the Can-Am seems a little more Ford sometimes. I just don't know. I can't figure it out yet, but we'll find out eventually. We'll let you know. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, so what makes this thing so special is it is based on the Polaris platform, which is competent. It's tried and true. I think the Sportsman platform is kind of like the F-150 or the Silverado. It's like a known commodity in this world. People understand exactly what that is. And the 850, let's get that out of the way. That's a uh, single invert cam, parallel two, so an inline two cylinder. It revs out pretty good. It makes 78 horsepower, which, look, the thing is 900 pounds, which is heavy for an ATV, but that thing has got some grunt. And the way that it delivers power too, it is so snappy. When you need it, there's no delay. There's no delay in the CVT, or excuse me, PVT, the Polaris variable transmission. There's no thinking about it or turbo spooling. It is just there immediately. I love that. And look, let me tell you, it's EFI, but it's a cable throttle body, and you can tell. And I wish they would bring that back to cars. It is so much better than the digital throttle bodies we have on vehicles now. So the car guy in me really likes that. But what makes it mud specific is the intakes you're talking about. There's a factory installed snorkel system, which these have been available aftermarket for a long time for a lot of different ATVs, but apparently they don't all seal that well. This one does. So it's all form fitted from the factory. It's not some homebrew thing. There's three intakes in front of the handlebar. One is for the engine. One is for the intake to the clutch pack. There's actually a clutch pack on the PVT transmission, and then an exhaust for that PVT. So it's inhaling air and pushing air out from the transmission because that is completely sealed. It cannot get wet when you go through mud.
And you know for sure it's completely sealed. Real world
Yes,
testing.
I had this thing submerged for an hour and a half with the engine on. You know why that worked, Craig? Because the radiator is not mounted on the front like a normal vehicle. It is mounted on top of the front deck where you would normally have a rack for like deer or gun racks or something. That rack is gone in lieu of a radiator with cooling fans. And this thing idled. And I didn't want to turn it off because the exhaust was also submerged. I didn't want it to get backfilled into the cylinder for an hour and a half. And it did not skip a beat. And look, I'm just all the things that you read in the brochure, like, oh yeah, it's ready for, it's got a sealed clutch pack and it's got the radiator up top. And yeah, okay, whatever, blah 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 blah. It's got paddle tires, blah 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 blah. Okay, great. Um, it worked. I mean, it all worked exactly as advertised. Like full credit. I don't think that any other outlet has sunk their loaner and left it running that long. I hope not. Um, and it didn't skip a beat. And unlike the Bronco, the starter didn't go out either, Craig. It just kept
Mm.
starting all day. So that was that. So long story short, this thing with the rear deck fenders were at the watermark. And let's say water, I mean like mucky mud slash quicksand slash water. It's like all of those, depending how deep you go in. There's like floating water on top, but we had churned up the earth so much. Those paddle tires bit the ground so much, it just dug a hole for itself, unfortunately. Um, it look, and this was like a 30 or 40 foot run of a mud hole. I was like, oh man, Pete, get down there. You'll catch me on the exit. I want you to film me exiting this thing. Why did I make it 10 feet and that thing just sunk like an anchor? And the foot decking, where your feet go, ended up working against us. And I noticed on some of the older ATVs that were rolling around at the park that day, they'd like removed these decks. I'm like, why are they taking these off? Now I get it. When that thing gets below water, it becomes an anchor. It's now keeping this thing in a suction situation, which is exactly what happened to us. Um, we tried pulling it with my brother-in-law's four-wheeler with a winch. It just pulled him into the pit, so that didn't work. we tried pulling with a kinetic rope. That just almost bent the frame of the other ATV, and it would nose up like a tractor tied to a tree. It just, and I tried. I'm a heavier rider than he was. I'm 290 pounds, and so that just made it more violent. It didn't make a difference. The ATV, the Polaris, was not moving at all whatsoever. Um, so luckily, we are go to get the truck. We had a Chevy ZR2 on loan at the time, which I was like, okay, we can get that in here. That has more pulling power. Let's try that. Well, we found a convoy, Craig, of not one but two other Polaris high lifter Rangers, the side by sides, the UTVs, and they had factory installed winches on them. And they were happy to come help. Let me tell you, they had a Polaris brethren in distress. They were on it. So these guys, if they were driving Can-Ams, may have kept rolling. I don't know. But Polaris guys, I got you. And so, of course, they're like, don't worry, we've got the high lifter. This is not going to be a problem. And I said, great, that's a high lifter too. And he goes, oh, I couldn't tell. It was buried too deep. So that was that. So anyways, long story short, it while we were just straight line winching it with the other Polaris, that we also tied to another tree behind it because it was pulling it in as well. We ended up breaking the rear tow bar. It sheared off the mount of the tow bar on the back. Now, in hindsight, I've dug into this. Apparently, you're supposed to tow from the actual trailer hitch on the back. There is a frame-mounted tow hook on the front of it, but on the back, they want you to use the hitch. And I'll just be completely honest with you, that's kind of dumb. Once we were sunk, there was no way of reaching it. It was caked up so much, I could not find it. And even if I did, there's not a good way to hook to that 1-inch receiver hitch. It's just too small to run anything through it. So that is kind of a mishap, but at the same time, I'm taking liability for the same breaking. You know, we were operating it, plain and simple. So that was my
Right.
apology to Polaris.
So thanks a lot. Probably our last Polaris we'll have. But no, hey, it's just like the
I
trucks
got
in the
it.
hills. We test them, baby. I
Yeah.
mean, when you watch our video, which is that in that current video that's just went out, this mud part, or is
No,
that
no,
going to be in the
that's
future?
that's in the future. That's
Okay,
I've not
future
edited what we
video
filmed. Yeah.
coming soon. But we do have a review out on it already. Is up live if you want to see the ATV we're talking about.
Yep.
And then stay tuned for the mud action. It's coming. So it's
Oh boy.
Brian, one more thing. I know, long story, whatever, but really
Sure.
cool thing that I thought was amazing. I wasn't there, but I got to see it the next day when we reviewed another vehicle. And I pulled up in your driveway, and you had the ATV in the back of the. We were reviewing a Silverado ZR2
Yeah.
AEV Bison. And you had it in the back of that, which cool vehicle we'll talk about on another podcast. But
Yeah.
I pulled up and I had my sunglasses on, and I was like, "Well, mate, it was a really hot day," and I was like, "The
I know.
tires look like they're not black; they look like another color." And I was like, in fact, they almost look kind of. Are they blue or gray? What is like? Is this like the blue or gold dress thing? Like, what is happening? Or like, well, maybe it's my windows. There's a little tint. Maybe the factory tint is playing with my eyeballs and the sunglasses combined. I'll get out and I'll look at it later. So went out, went in, we got all our gear together, went out to go film, and you go, "Hey, did you notice the tires are blue?" I go, "Oh, so it's not just me; they are blue." We researched it though, or you researched it. Why did the tires? I mean, I'm not joking. Blue, they are
Yeah.
very blue,
The,
and the mud that fell off of them is even blue. What happened? How did the tires turn blue? What did you do?
Look, the irony of this is great because it's the exact same blue that Polaris uses on their logos and on their coilover shocks that this thing has.
It
So
did match.
it looked like it was meant to be. So look, here's what happened. After we got this thing out of the sinkhole, we hosed off for like another hour. I mean, I had mud in every orifice. I think my nose is leaking mud still. Like it's a problem. Okay. And by the way, that 02 was caked in the driver's seat full of mud. Can't believe that thing cleaned up. I had to apologize to those guys this morning too. So, anyways, sorry, Chevy. Um, anyways, getting around to it, we're riding around, and my brother-in-law Pete has brand new tires on his 20-year-old ATV, and I said, "Dude, your tires are all blue. What the hell is that?" And he goes, "That's weird. Your tires are blue." I'm like, "Nah, I can't be right." And I look over and I go, "Well, holy crap, he's right." So, anyways, moral of the story: we get back, and my wife looks it up because I'm trying to. This is like an anomaly. I've never seen this. I'm also going, how do I unblue the tires? Not only have I ruined the recovery bar on the back, I replaced that. I got to buy 4 tires now. Like, what is going on? It turns out, Craig, not on vehicle tires so much, but the type of rubber that is used on ATV lawnmowers, tractors, that kind of stuff, that grade of tire, that kind of the utilitarian tire, when it is caked in mud, not splashed in mud, when it is caked in mud for a period of time and it hardens, when that mud falls off, what's left behind is all the oils in that particular rubber comes to the surface, and it turns out it's blue. I never knew that,
Hmm.
but it is. So I get
So
looking
the tire got
around.
a facial.
I did too, but yeah, no, it got a full coverage facial, the whole thing. That I was gonna bleep that out. Anyways, look, there's other rubber products on the ATV on the handlebar, like one of the brake lines. It turned blue as well. After we pressure washed everything off, everything's blue. And like you said, even the mud that was caked to the tires that fell on the bed of the truck, it was blue on the interior side, the tire side. Most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Never seen that in my life.
Pretty crazy. Yeah, I couldn't believe how blue they were. The more he looked at them, like, oh my goodness, that is really blue. Yeah. So if you've never seen that, or if you have seen it, now you know what it is. That's what it's about. Again, we test it all. Now we test tires and see if they turn blue.
Right.
We're going to try that on more cars and see what happens.
No
But
kidding.
uh, you mentioned you had mud in every orifice.
Well, just
You
about.
said it felt like you basically crapped your pants all day, is what you told me.
Yeah,
What do you?
that's true.
I mean, how
It,
did you get mud in your pants? Because you sent me a picture when you first started, and you like it looks like you're wearing like these waders. You're pretty protected, pretty well. I don't understand how you got mud everywhere.
Well, here's what happened, Craig. Those weren't waders. It's just that my sneakers to my exposed legs to my shorts were caked with mud. You thought they were waders.
Oh my goodness.
I was just wearing shorts. And
Well, okay.
look,
Well, then I
dude,
don't feel bad for you. You're an idiot.
no, look, I didn't think it was gonna get that deep. I was like, I've seen the commercials. This thing bounces off and it paddles itself out. We got this. We're gonna hopscotch across it. And it turns out that pit, Craig, is meant for these like homebrew monster trucks.
Yes.
And everyone that rolled by was like, "Don't go in that pit. Don't go in that pit."
After
Of
you're in
course,
it,
yeah, there's no sign that says "Don't go in that pit" unless you're a monster truck. So
right?
lesson learned.
Yeah, it
And
would
look,
have
I'll
been
be
nice.
honest. We tried everything under the sun to get this out. I'm off the thing to get my weight off of it. I'm working the throttle, standing next to it, and I'm in the pit waist deep. And I go, let me adjust and get a little further away from it because all four tires are spinning next to me at my chest height because I'm that deep into it. And well, a little, not quite that deep, but around there. I'm more than waist deep at this point. And I go to shuffle around. Well, I didn't realize I was standing on a tree root, Craig. I started to sink into the earth. I just kept going. And so I had to stop it, climb up on the ATV. It's kind of like climbing up on a boat dock without a ladder. I mean, it's just a really unpleasant thing. Your shoes start to come off. I mean, it's just, I get out and thought, oh no, my wallet's in my back pocket. And no, I did leave it in the truck. It was just mud in my back pocket. Every pocket was full of mud. I had to pressure wash my boxers afterwards. It looked
Not a
like
sight
I had
any of us wanted to see.
no, no, not at all. It wasn't pleasant. And here's my takeaway, Greg. Mudding is fun. Trail riding is even better. Rock crawling is super technical and awesome. Mud holes, I do not get the appeal. And I'm not saying I was doing it right. I don't think this thing was ever intended to do that deep of a hole. But you see these rednecks on Instagram doing this. They'll build like these mud bog machines. There's nothing fun about that. That is a miserable experience. So, if it's your thing, more power to you. I just don't get it personally.
Well, it was quite the adventure for you, and we're learning a lot about these things as we test them.
Oh yeah,
Like you alluded to earlier, we got another off-road park we're going to this Saturday, and a little bit more of what we like: rock crawling slash
yeah,
trail running. That's more our speed. We're used to that. We do that with trucks,
oh yeah, all the
and the
time.
reason we don't go mudding with trucks because it's a pain in the butt to clean them afterwards, and it
Yeah,
just mud gets everywhere. You're never getting rid of the mud.
right.
It's one thing to splash a puddle, it's another thing to bury it. So
Two
yeah,
different things.
lesson learned. Fun vehicle. If you're in the mudding, you're right. I'm sure that's going to be a fun ATV for some people, and it's like you say, it did all the things it was advertised to do. It did it. So
Yeah, and let me tell you,
props to it.
once we got it out, we rode for several hours after that on trail stuff, and it was
Yeah,
still a hoot,
it
and it
took a
could
beating,
do
man.
way more than the other stuff that was there that day. So it just kept going. I'm impressed. I'm genuinely impressed. Like I said, maybe not that spec for me, but man, it is definitely the tool for the job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move into our next topic. Our next topic is the Sequoia versus the Armada. And Brian, I can't remember which one we had first. Was it the Sequoia? No, it was the Armada
It's
first, right?
Armada. It was the Armada. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So we've had the new Land Cruiser 300 series platform, or better known as the TNGA, is it F platform?
I think it's the F. Yeah,
The TNGA F
for full
platform,
size.
which is basically the underpinning for the Land Cruiser 300 series and a lot of other vehicles. That includes the Tundra, the Sequoia, the GX550, which we'll talk more about, the new Tacoma, the Forerunner that's coming out soon. And we'll talk about
And
maybe Land Cruiser.
well,
We'll see.
mutters.
But the point is, we very excited about it because they announced we're losing the Land Cruiser. We
A
previously
year
had the
ago.
Land Cruiser 200 series, and they said, "Hey, it's not coming. The Land Cruiser is going away in the U.S." And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But in the meantime, what it means is we got this TNGA-F platform, which we know is going to underpin the new Land Cruiser, which means when we get the Sequoia, we're like, "Oh, this is going to be exciting." And then meanwhile, over in the Nissan camp, Brian, we have an ancient Y62 Patrol platform, which underpins the U.S.
Wait,
Armada.
wait. Can I interrupt real quick? Did you
Yeah,
say ancient?
pretty ancient.
I thought you meant brilliant. Is that you meant brilliant,
Okay,
right?
okay, yeah.
Okay, okay.
We'll get into that. We're going to get into that. So, yes, ancient doesn't necessarily mean bad, and we've learned that with a lot of vehicles of late. But yes, so we
No
get the
kidding.
Nissan Armada, and I mean, you said we're getting Nissan Armada, and at first you're like, ugh. And I'm like, dude, no, this is going to be awesome. It's based on the Patrol. It's what they sell in Australia and the rest of the world. It's a legit off-roader. It's a Land Cruiser competitor. Like, it's their Land Cruiser. It's built in Japan. I mean, it's made for off-roading, serious off-roading. Even though it has four-wheel independent suspension, it is made to tackle those kinds of things. And of course, overseas, it even gets rear lockers and off-road modes. Like, it's
Right.
legit. So you're
Which
like,
I
okay,
didn't.
well,
Full transparency. I didn't quite understand that, and I also did admittedly kind of blow you off when you told me all that. I was like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
you
okay,
did.
whatever. He's geeking
But then
again,
you're
whatever.
Yeah, but then you quickly like, okay, well, this might be interesting. Let's
Yeah,
give it a fair
sure,
shake.
sure.
So we get the thing, and I think, well, you had it first, and you called me pretty. We call each other pretty early on when we have these vehicles, kind of share our feedback, and you're like, man, this thing's not bad. And we're like, well, let's give it some time. Let's wait.
I
And
like how you're talking me off the cliff. As soon as I'm like, this is pretty good, you're like, well, hold
yeah, I'm
on.
like, calm down, because I was pretty sure you weren't going to like this thing. It had its quirks, of course. It's old. It is ancient. There's some things that are not in there that should be in there.
For
But
sure.
um, then I get it, and yeah, you're absolutely right. The thing was
That's
awesome,
awesome.
and here's why. It it's got the 5.6 liter V8, which has been out since what, 2004?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is
Not
that
this
what do they call it?
iteration, but I think this version's like 11 or so is when the last time it was
Yeah,
updated.
right. But originally, the VK56 has been out since
Right. It's still called
forever.
that. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
still called that, by the way.
still called that. And that was the number one thing. We had a naturally aspirated V8 that ripped and sounded good. And yeah, at this point, since it's been out so long, that sucker is sorted. It has zero issues. Doesn't get the best mileage, but who cares when you're driving that? And then the actual Armada itself it was really comfortable. The seat was a little high, but
Yeah,
out past that, it was just comfortable. It rode good. You had good sight lines. It had plenty of power, plenty of room in the back. Um, we did take it up our hill test, and it did much better than it should have done with 22-inch rims, Brian.
that's
22s.
right. I forgot about that. I thought it was 20s the whole time. And then the day before we shot, I went to read the tire size. I went, holy crap, these are 22s. It rides
22s.
so good.
Stupid.
Hey,
Anyways,
I just looked it up. 2002 is when that motor came out.
okay, 2002. Unbelievable how long that sucker's been out. So yeah,
Yeah,
21 years. 1 year,
I
21
can't
of that sucker.
believe that.
And I don't know how long we're going to have this Armada or the
Right.
current Titan. Who knows? I'm sure there'll be a refresh at some point. But Brian, it was just so refreshing because it was
Yeah,
kind of old school, but it's been updated. We had Apple CarPlay with landscape
relatively.
mode. It
Yeah.
worked, and Brian, I don't know. That's my take on it. It was a pleasant surprise. What was your take?
It was charming as all get out. I just look when you. I want to back up our lead into this. You were talking with the Armada. This was almost 8 months ago. You're like, oh yeah, but it's overseas. It's their version of the Land Cruiser, and us, whatever. Doric, look, a regular 150 is a better off-road machine in the states. Blah 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 blah. This is our normal conversation, by the way. We do
Sure.
this. We do this. It reciprocates. Trust me, it's fine. Um, and then once we've been asking for it, Nissan hasn't had one, and we're reaching for one. So next thing you know, I kind of forgot about it. It comes in. I was like, man, Craig, I'm not that excited about this, but I don't know. And you're like, no, give it a fair shake. The moment I started up and drive off, I go, oh, this is what I've been missing from every SUV since we started the show. This is it. This sensation right here. And by the way, the Pathfinder Rock Creek does the same thing in V6 form. Nissan has got sensation dialed. They have figured that out, but it's not like it's some unwildly or weirdly unrefined machine. It is quiet. It is, well, the seating position was very awkward, but it's a comfortable setting that is on the highway really good. It has good road manners. It's soft but doesn't handle poorly. Um, Now there are some quirks, like yeah, it's got infotainment that's updated, but it's also like angled towards the ceiling for some reason, and just stuff like that where you're like, I want to let that slide because it drives so good and that kind of stuff. I do wish we had the locker. Like if
Hmm.
they just made a Rock Creek version of this or a Pro 4X version of this, like
Man,
watch out Z71 GM stuff or AT4X stuff. Like I'm sorry,
right.
the LS, I'm sorry, LT GM V8 pushrod stuff compared to this is incredibly boring.
Mm.
Um, this isn't as peaky as Ford's Coyote V8. It's a little more torquey in the middle. It's kind of more balanced. It also feels like almost a little more refined in some ways, a little less coarse. Um, but man, what a charming thing! It was great. And then we did the hill test, and it just didn't even sweat a bit. It was great. It had skid plates where it needed it. It had side steps that weren't in the way, but worked. It's like so many things that weren't right about it were also so good in its mechanical function. That stuff is not new, but they got it right the first time, and it's still good today.
Look, there's a realtor saying when you buy a house and you don't ever want to hear it. Oh, this house has good bones. Like, don't buy that house. I'm just going to tell you. Um, but there is some truth to it. And
How fitting
in
to
the
this.
car world, look, this thing has. We talked about it when we were doing the offer test. Look, it has good bones. It can't hide it. It is in this market supposed to be a luxury on-road cruiser, mall crawler, pick up the kids
Right,
in the carpool line, be a Luxo boat, right?
right.
But because it's got the Y62 Patrol bones, it can't help itself. And
Yeah,
despite
but be
the
good.
22s, despite running boards, despite it's supposed to be luxury, it made it right up the hill, kind of hardly any problems. It was quite impressive. This is the vehicle that, look, I'll drive this from coast to coast and be completely comfortable and would love to ride with anyone, even if I'm not
Sure.
driving. This thing is that
Yeah.
comfortable. So,
Well, here's the funny thing is Nissan North America did its best to water this thing down and make it like pointless to truck guys and off road. And they failed enough that it just couldn't help itself. It had to be good up off the hill. It had to be actually pretty good on mileage, better than a lot of the turbo V6 stuff we drive.
yeah.
And it ripped like a freaking freight train, yet
Yeah.
checked off the boring boxes that Nissan required to sell in America for some reason.
And
So
yeah,
good job.
and the best part is, we're going to blow the secret here, but because no one really has figured this out, it's not overpriced new, but it is in the sense that it has zero resale value. So what you
Right.
do is you buy a 1 or 2 year old Armada, and you're saving so much money. It's not even
Right.
funny,
It's a
and
hack. It really
it's
is.
it is an absolute hack and a bargain. So don't
Well,
buy it to sell it again, but if you buy it just to
yeah.
keep it in overland or off road or just drive it around, you're
Or just
gonna
drive it.
love it.
Look,
So.
let me proposition this to you, Craig. It is on the used market substantially cheaper than a Forerunner, and it
Good
is
point.
substantially more advanced and just newer in general. Even though it's dated, it is
Oh
definitely
yeah.
newer, and it's faster and more fuel efficient and about the same footprint in terms of parking. And what I mean by that is the Forerunner feels way bigger than it is. This
Mm,
feels the appropriate size. They feel the same in a parking lot.
yeah. Yeah.
It's impressive.
So that we have that, and then we get the Toyota Sequoia, Brian,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
excited about
Platinum.
that because at the time we didn't have any news about a Land Cruiser coming back, and we're like,
Wish
well,
we knew
hang
that when we
on,
filmed, by the way.
yeah, and we're like, hey, this is the basically the new 300 series for the U.S. market. We know the rest of the world's getting 300 series. It's the TNGA F platform. That's our dog. What's your
Sorry.
Maverick?
Yeah, TTC dog is what that is.
TTC dog
Maverick.
Maverick. So
Yeah,
first guest on this show. Um,
cameo.
cameo, yeah. But we're excited because maybe this is it. Now, to be fair, well, this is a good comparo. Actually, we wish we would have gotten the TRD Pro version, and I'm sure we will soon. But
Sure.
we got the Platinum version. Is that the one we
Oh,
got?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay,
Now, hang on. In all fairness, the Armada was also, I think it was also a platinum. It was
and
actually trimmed. It's called,
that's what I'm saying. So it's actually a
right.
good comparo.
That's a
So
great compare. Yeah.
we get a similar trimmed Sequoia to the Armada,
Yeah.
which is its direct competitor and is the closest thing at the time we thought we were getting to a Land Cruiser US. We're kind of pumped about this thing. We've
Totally.
driven the Tundras and we've enjoyed most of our experiences of them, except for the long wheelbase Dumbo Mirror one.
And
Um,
hybrid platform one as well. Mm.
and all these, okay, so that's part of the problem. Let's just start there. All
Yeah.
these Sequoias, you can't get a Sequoia without a hybrid. You just can't.
Right.
Not
Which is a
even like an
mistake, I think.
SR5 or
Right.
anything. You just have to get it. And we're just fine. But let's get this thing. Let's drive it. I think I had this one first, and then you had it on the second run.
Yeah. I have
So
for the weekend.
you had it real quick, and you're like, it's got some issues, but you like drove it to work and back, and that was it. So then I picked it up and I drove it home, and I was tired. I met you early, it was earlier in the week. We don't normally swap that way. And I drove home, and on the way home, I called you because I was so pissed off. I was pissed off for so
Well,
many reasons.
yeah.
And
Well, and
that,
here's the great part: is when I called you on Monday because I picked it up at lunchtime. I called you, I was like, "Hey, this, and this seem problematic. I'm a little confused because we've driven these before and didn't have this problem or didn't notice
yeah,
them, and we've driven the Sequoia a couple times at this point." And you're like, "Yeah, whatever." Yeah, you just blow it off because look, first day impressions often change by the end of the week.
yeah,
So
yeah.
then you get in it. I think you had more complaints than I did.
Oh, so frustrated. Okay, so I drive it home, and I am pissed. I mean, nothing is working out right. The headrest is in the way. I cannot get comfortable in it. I
Right.
can't find buttons in it. I can't. And some of this is user error. I totally understand. But it was
But not
just,
most of it. Not
but
most
not
of
all of
that, by
it.
the way.
So
Yeah.
then I'm driving to work the next day, and I'm like, well, let's drive it to work and see what happens. Maybe I was just tired and in a bad mood. So I drive to work next day. Let's give it a fair shake because I like the Tundras. I know this thing's got to be decent,
Yeah. Tunder's great.
So I drive it in there's no way this can be this bad. So I drive it in, and Brian, I'm trying to turn off the heads up display because it's out of focus. I don't know why Toyota can't make a heads up display that's within focus. You
By the
can't
way,
adjust it.
that's the third Toyota we've had that has done that to
Yeah,
us, and
you
we've
can't
tried to clean
adjust
it.
it. You
Yeah,
can't.
it's
You
not like
try to
it's
clean it.
smudgy. Yeah.
You can't, and also it's positioned wrong. It's cutting when I was sitting too high, and I'm not a tall person. It was cutting off the top of the letters. I couldn't see the speedometer because it was cutting it off.
I couldn't see more than half of it.
Yeah, it's even worse for you. So I'm like, well, if I could adjust it up, you can't adjust it. So
Ugh.
on the way in,
That's.
Brian, I'm trying to find a button because you know what Toyota is good at? They're good at hard keys. They put hard key
Mhm.
buttons in for everything. In
Yeah,
fact,
they're
so
real good
many,
with
Brian,
that.
I counted them on the way in to work, and I called you. And I can't remember, it's in the video, but I want to say there was 78 hard keys I could depress from the
Yep.
driver's seat. And
Yep.
that's everything from seat controls to
And
transmission to
then
wiper stalks.
You found three more. It was 81. I remember.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, you found three more somewhere else.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
think it was on the mirror.
Yep. It
81
was.
hard keys. And then I finally found it somewhere buried in the software, a soft key somewhere where you
Right.
can actually turn the heads up display off.
You
So
know
that's good.
that
You can't turn
represents a
it
real
off, but
problem for the OEs though. They've got so many functions in these cars now. With 81 buttons, they still had to put that function in the infotainment. How
but
crazy is that?
I don't understand of all the that's a function you think you would want a hard key for. I don't understand. Look, GM
Yeah,
gives you 3 buttons for the heads up display to adjust
and it
everything in
works
their vehicles, and it works. I
on the
mean, come on,
fly
what are
every
we
time.
doing? So,
Yeah.
and Toyota's not the only one that does this. Mazda has a problem with this too, and I hate that too. But whatever. So that was one of the just minor issues. But there's a host of others.
Yeah, we could have two podcasts with our complaints on this.
Yeah,
But
and I don't want to
let's
make it
pick
all.
a few maybe.
Yeah, I don't want to make it all complaints. I'm gonna pick one more, and then I want to let you get your gripes in because sometimes this podcast is for just us to vent. We
Just
have to do it
ranting.
sometimes,
Yeah.
and this just look. This is the truth. This is what happened. So the next thing is, Brian, we get a solid rear axle in the back in this
Mm-hmm.
generation Sequoia. Previously, we had independent rear suspension.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting move, and obviously, it's mostly necessitated by the TNGAF platform. They're sharing all this,
It's
which is
about
also
money.
cool. Yeah, it's also cool though because you get Toyota ain't messing around. They give you a 10.5-inch rear diff, which
That
is
is beefy.
crazy.
That's like
So
Ford Super Duty levels.
yeah, so it's got the beef. I mean, it's a legitimate LC300 platform. I mean, this is everybody talks about. Was it really going to be stout enough? Maybe we can a recreational vehicle. It's plenty stout. That's a
Oh yeah.
non-issue. But what that does, Brian, is it ruins their packaging in the rear, and so you
Mhm.
can't fold down the seats flat, and it's got this weird, stupid tray. Go ahead.
Well, okay. Well, I was going to pause there because there's two things and you brought this up when we were filming. I didn't realize this. Not only is it the live axle, which the truck guy should be happy with, right?
Right?
But you do lose some packaging.
Yep.
But the worst part is because of
Mhm.
the battery that's shoved back there, the
Yeah.
seats
Yes. Good
can't
point.
really. Not only are they not, the backs simply fold flat, and the base doesn't move at all. It moves front
Mm-mm.
and back, but it doesn't go down at all.
Mm-mm.
Whereas old Suburbans and Tahoes have had live axles forever, up until just recently, and you can fold those seats flat. So this is just they're not trying hard enough, or that battery's in the way, or whatever. It's a battery.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
understand it. And then I said that was my last thing. I'll get one more, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, Brian. It's got a panoramic roof, which is great,
Uh,
but you literally cannot fit in the second row of a full size SUV
yeah.
without hitting your head.
Yeah.
The Ford Maverick, you have more room in the headroom in the Ford Maverick rear seat than you do in a Toyota Sequoia second row.
It's embarrassing. And look, it's embarrassing for Toyota, and it's really frustrating for me because it's not like this is the RAV4 or something, right? This is the
Right,
Sequoia, dude. This is the big boy.
right.
And we get in fact, I was editing earlier. The Nissan Pathfinder Rock Creek, no problem. The Pilot, no problem. The Volkswagen Atlas, no problem. The Maverick, no problem.
Come on, what are we doing?
What is the deal? Now the front row is fixed. So the
Yes.
previous gen Tundra Tacomas, I couldn't even fit in the front rows, sunroof or not. So not well, I could, but it was really compromised. There's a lot of compromises that make me not hit my head getting in and out of it. They have solved the front row. The front row is unbelievably comfortable. That's still true here. So let's not act like the whole thing's bad. But I'm just gonna dump on some of the things that you added. You hit the two big ones though. Those are the biggest complaints because they actually tie into one another. Let me pull my notes up here, Craig. There's plenty of them. I made a list because it was so
Yeah, and
frustrating.
as you're pulling it up, I'm just real quick. I am going to add to the positive, like you said. The front row
Okay,
is really good. Just give you time to look up your complaints, but
thank you.
the front row is sorted. It is nice. Actually, towards the end of the week, I'm like, this was kind of fun to drive. I kind of got used to it. I get in a really good seating position for myself. You could too.
Mhm.
And it was definitely much more modern than the Armada for sure. The infotainment was
Oh
better,
yeah,
all those
infotainment's really
things.
good, by the
The
way.
sound system was great.
Yeah, JBL
So I
killed it.
mean, there were some good things. We had it on a really hot day. The AC worked great the entire time we had it. Of course, so did the Armada. But anyways, so
Fair, yeah.
it was. You're right. It wasn't all bad, and they're going to still sell a bunch of them. That's for
Oh,
sure.
they're gonna sell all of them, by the way. And
Although
like,
they haven't sold
mhm.
many lately, so who knows?
Well, that's true. But they also haven't made many lately,
That's
so
true.
it's both.
Yeah.
Look, this is a long list. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but I'm gonna hit the highlights on this. Um, and let's start with the positive. It gets lots of looks. I don't quite understand it in the
Yeah.
silver color we had, but I was getting gawked at like I wasn't wearing clothes or something. It was just unbelievable. Both moms and dads both were just like drooling, like, "Oh, he's got the Sequoia. Oh, look at the Sequoia." It's like, this is the most boring looking Sequoia. They make an orange one, which is amazing. I don't get this one, but whatever. Um, and this is kind of where our synopsis was in the review as well. I don't want to scoop ourselves too much, but whatever. The Toyota SUV to have if you must tow over 5,000 pounds. What I mean by
Yeah.
that is the Grand Highlander, which we've driven. We went to Hawaii and drove that. If you're just caring about moving your family around and doing road trips, it's a much better packaged product. It just is more comfortable. The seats go flat, way better fuel economy, that kind of stuff. And actually, I think it has better ride and drive manners than the Sequoia does. Um, but if you need to do truck stuff, okay, fair, I get it. Now let's get into the deals here. There are a lot of minor misses, and this is probably the overall real issue. The hyper powertrain is non-linear. The transmission is kind of lazy. The touchscreen's too big. The power steps knock your calves off whenever you stand up outside of it. The solid axle reminds you it's there the
Oh yeah.
entire time you're driving it.
Ooh, it did
Cup
not ride
hold,
good.
yeah, not ride good, and that's part of the ABS suspension, which we'll come back to that. The cup holder is one-sided, which you didn't care about so much, but it knocks 12-ounce cans on their end the entire time you're driving. Don't quite understand that. And you brought this up. The headrests don't adjust, and for you, it was very uncomfortable. For me, it was noticeable, but not the end of the world.
I literally drove the
Um,
headrest off most of the time I had it.
yeah, when I got it from you, the headrest was flipped backwards. Like you took it off and mounted it backwards. Okay, let's see here. Here's an equal amount of bigger misses. The MPG is not good. The nose is way too low. In fact, when you watch our offer video, you'll know why it couldn't make it up. The mirrors are dumb for many, many reasons.
Oh,
Instead of
that's
towing
right.
mirrors,
Yeah.
which let's pause there real quick. They look like Dumbo. You know the Cummins memes, the Cummins diesel
Oh,
Dodge Ram trucks.
man.
This looked worse than that.
You can't.
Um,
You literally would created such a blind spot. It's almost dangerous.
I folded them in common, like while going on the highway several times because I
You
couldn't see
can't
what was
see
behind me.
anything.
Yeah, and they flop in the wind like crazy.
And I'm sure if you're
Um,
towing all the time, probably nice.
Sure. And what's funny is that they marketed this as the towing package. It had the air
Yeah,
ride rear
sure.
springs and stuff, which it still sagged. I don't understand that. And then the mirrors, which are dumb. In fact, my wife's friends saw this because they're like, "Ooh, it's a Sequoia," and they go, "Oh, did they put the wrong mirrors on it?" They thought it was a
My
manufacturing mistake. So,
my daughter said the exact same thing. I'm like, no, this is a package. She goes, oh, good. You can get these without that. Yeah. So,
uh, she had a good way to put that. Yeah, she nailed that. Okay, the next thing, AVS suspension sags in the rear. I don't know why, and it rides poorly everywhere. The rear shelf is clumsy. You touched on that. Rear seats are in the way when they're not in use at all times because you can't take them out, by the way. It's not like you can slide
mm-mm.
them out and leave them in the garage. They're stuck.
Right.
You lose the rear roll down window that the old one had, which was
Oh, that's
brilliant.
right.
Now, I spoke to Mike Swears about this, who's the chief engineer on this product, or on a lot of this product at least.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me that was because they wanted an aluminum hatch for weight reasons, and because of the strength reduction, they couldn't put their window regulator in there. He's probably true, but we all know that if Toyota really wanted a window, they would have put the window in there.
Sure.
In fact, it makes more sense to not put the window because of weight for the motor more than the aluminum. So who knows what that answer is there. My wife says, "Hey Toyota" sounds mad. So when you go, "Hey Toyota" to the navigation, it responds with an attitude. And the transmission gave me a high temp warning 3 times in
Oh,
4 days.
yes. And
Um,
that also happened in our when you first got it back from me, and then also during the
mhm,
hill test, didn't it happen?
it did, yeah. So it happened.
Yeah.
Well, no, it happened on the 060 test.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. But when I got it back from you, by the way, it was 82 degrees and it gave me that warning.
Yeah, it wasn't a hot
It
day.
wasn't
Mm-mm.
hot. I don't understand that. So now we've driven these before and Tundras. We've never seen this. So I'm hoping it's
Yeah,
just this unit. In fact,
it
don't
probably
not
is.
buy one because of that. Do some homework maybe, but we have not experienced this before. I think this is more of a fluke than anything else.
Listening to you read through this list, a lot of it was that particular trim and package, just not the one for
Oh,
us.
sure,
That's for sure.
sure.
But
And look,
to
yeah,
be fair, the Armada had the same similar type of package, and we didn't have any of those issues. I'm just saying.
and look, a simple natural aspirated V8 got better mileage and never had a heat soak problem and never gave us warnings. And I'm here to tell you that this Sequoia, the one we had, was not going to tow the way it's advertising if it's already overheating
Mm-mm.
empty. Okay, here's the good stuff. I've got some stuff that works really well. Has lots of torque, lots of it, lots
That's
of torque
true.
everywhere when it's not overheating. It's great. The front row is really comfy. Native infotainment is really good. The navigation system is really good.
Yeah, it
Quiet,
is.
yeah, quiet at highway speeds on all surfaces. Didn't matter if it was
That's
uh,
true. It was very quiet.
cement or asphalt, whatever. It can tow 9,000 pounds. That's in quotes. The 10 speed is smooth. The headlights are bright and very focused. I like those at night a lot.
Those were
JBL
good headlights.
stereo kicks butt, and like you said, hard buttons everywhere. Those are
Mm.
big pluses, by the way.
Yeah, no,
So,
they absolutely are. And that, one of the things we talked about when we get some of these newer cars, look, this is a vehicle that was developed during COVID, and stuff happens. I'm not saying that's the problem here, but here's what's going to happen: is Toyota. Here's what Toyota does. It's been a long time since they refreshed a lot of these vehicles. They're
mhm,
refreshing them all now at once. I don't think they'll all go 20-year life cycles like the previous generations because it's just you
probably
just can't
not.
do that anymore.
Yeah.
But what they're going to do and what Toyota's the best in the world at is rolling something out and it being pretty good. And then they slowly evolve it and refine it each
Yes.
model year, whether it was refreshed or not. They make changes and they
Oh,
fix
look
things.
look at the GR family right now.
Yeah,
There has not been a Supra since the year it came out that hasn't been different year over year. Something has been different.
right. And it's going to be small stuff. They're going to fix a lot of these things, and we're gonna review one in 2 or 3 years from now. And we're like, oh my god, well, goodness, they've
Oh,
solved all these problems. So,
we're gonna review one in October and be like, oh, we're not seeing any of these issues now. Like that, it's
right,
just that's
right.
just how they are. They're good at that.
So, but we wanted to talk about all that because it was funny because we had the Armada the week before, so it was interesting. We don't usually get similar vehicles like that back to back, so it was really nice to do that. And I guess the takeaway is, hey, look, if you're looking to buy a Sequoia, you're gonna love it. I get it.
Yeah,
If you can wait, I would wait a little bit. Is all I'm saying. If you
yeah.
can't wait and you're actually on the fence between these two, get the Armada and be happy. Well, get a
Yeah.
1-year-old Armada and be happy.
Well, and I
So
want to emphasize something you bring up a lot, and I hate to say this because we say this on a lot of reviews. If you're a Toyota guy and you want a full size SUV, there's nothing else for you, and you're
yeah,
gonna
just
love
get
it because
yeah.
all these things we're mentioning, you're gonna be like, yeah, but the infotainment's so great, or yeah, it's got a lot of torque. It doesn't matter. You're gonna just see the good, and that's
Yeah,
perfectly
that's
fine.
true.
The only thing I would warn is if you get one and because you have to get hybrid, go run that thing out on a test drive and try to overheat that transmission. That's the only thing I'd be
Good
worried
point.
about as a bind. Everything else is kind of like subjective, like
And
preference.
and we while every time we have these vehicles, we build them pricing to see which one we would get, and we both immediately we'd get the SR5 with the off road package,
Yeah.
and
Oh
it
yeah.
solves a lot of these problems. You don't get the mirrors are gone. You get the screen's a little bit smaller, so it's not in the
S-
way,
The
and
sunroof's
the
gone.
sunroof, yeah, the panoramic roof is gone. You've all of a sudden solved a lot on our list that we didn't like. So now you got
Hmm.
rear seat headroom, all these things. So look, that's the other thing. Maybe get your butt in the seats and make sure that some of these things aren't issues for you. So, anyways,
Totally. Yeah.
okay, Brian, that leads us into our last topic, and that is speaking of Land Cruiser 300 series. Everybody would be moaned, "Oh, Toyota, what are you doing? This is a Halo car. This is the top of the line. This is your flagship car. How can you not be bringing it back to the States? How come it's gone? What do you mean it's not coming back?" And the whole time, of course, we were all a little confused because we knew all these vehicles were based on the same platform. They had already developed and released the LC300. Like, what is going on? So here's what's happened in the last, I guess, week and a half, 2 weeks.
Week.
We got this news.
Yeah.
We
Or
got the
2 weeks,
news.
right?
Or Toyota released it on it was Instagram and I think Facebook maybe. They
Hmm.
released a teaser. It said it's got these nameplates of Land Cruisers, and they're all kind of like FJ40 series. There's some other series in there as well, but it's older. There's no 200 series. There's no 100 series. There's no 80 series nameplates in here. They're
They're all retro. Yeah.
all retro nameplates, and it says, I think the tagline was, "You knew we wouldn't be gone for long," or something like that.
You knew we'd be back, I think is what it
You knew
was.
something along those lines, basically saying the Land Cruiser is coming back to the States, and this is on the heels of the release of the Lexus GX550, which was everybody's
A
quite
week
excited about.
That was a
Go
week
ahead.
before this announcement. So it is real close.
Right. So, and it's everybody's excited about that because Lexus finally figured out what everybody's doing with the GXs. They're taking them, they're overlanding them because it's a great platform. It's the Land Cruiser Prado platform, and it will continue to
Or
be.
or a fixed forerunner platform because that's the V8.
Right, exactly. So a fixed Forerunner, okay. A corrected Forerunner platform, yeah.
Right, a 6-speed
So
V8. Yeah.
yeah, and so they made an overland or trail edition. I can't remember what they call this. What was the trail or off-road
Uh,
edition of the GX five
oh,
fifty?
it's called Over Trail.
Oh, over trail, trail
Yeah.
hunter. It's getting really confusing. Some of these nameplates. But yes, the over trail edition, and it's actually focused on off road. It's got off road. It's got all terrain tires. It's got lockers. It deletes the rear seat, which you don't need when you're doing that. So it's pretty neat to see them be that dedicated to it on the Lexus nameplate.
Yeah.
And then on the heels of all that, to have this announcement that the Land Cruiser is coming back has got everybody excited. So we just thought we'd throw our 2 cents in and make our best guesses because here's all the guesses out there. I'm going to throw them out there and then we'll kind of talk through where we're at.
Yeah.
One
What's your
easy,
cent? We each get
yeah,
1 cent. What's your cent, Craig?
right. And so the first easy option is, well, we're just getting the 300 series that they've already developed for the rest of the world in Australia and other parts in the Middle East. Just bring it here. Why not do that?
Real quick,
Um,
can you briefly explain what the 300 series is? Because I don't think everybody knows what that means.
And so the
That's all
300
people do.
series is basically a shorter wheelbase Tundra or Sequoia, much shorter wheelbase, and it's actually off-road focused. So you have the luxury trims just like we did previously, but you also have a new GR trim, which actually gets you for the first time ever in a Land Cruiser, well, since an 80 series, a selectable front and rear locker, and then of course
Okay.
some trick suspension sway bar stuff. It's not KDSS, but it's got some fun sway bar stuff. So a legitimate off-roading focused Land Cruiser, which we haven't had since the 80 series. So everybody's really gushing and excited about that. And it would be easy to bring over here. We'll talk through some of the problems with that in a minute. But the next option, a rebadged Lexus GX550, just call it a Toyota Land Cruiser. Basically, the U.S. Land Cruiser, instead of being a 300 series, would be a Land Cruiser Prado, which would be cool in its own way. And that would be very easy to do. And there's a lot of speculation that might be because the announcement was so close to the GX550 coming out. Maybe. And
Hmm.
then the last speculation is, which there's debate in the Toyota forums whether or not this is the 4Runner or the Land Cruiser. There's a lot of talk about a more off-road focus, legitimately off-road focus, to take the fight to the Bronco and the Wrangler. So
Mm.
if it's a Land Cruiser nameplate instead of a 4Runner nameplate, maybe it's more like the FJ40 series, which was basically a Jeep based on a Willis Jeep back in the day. And so those are the kind of the three options. I guess there could be a wild card we're not aware of, but those are the three prevailing thoughts, Brian. Eh, so which one do you think it is? Give us your 2 cents, 1 cent, whatever, and why do you think it's that? And what's your best guess?
Well, Craig, I'm always about value, so I'm going to give you 5 cents. So here's what I'm
Inflation.
concerned. Inflation, yeah, yeah. There you go. Here's the thing I want to throw in here. In speaking with Toyota off camera at some events almost a year ago, they have already confirmed that 4Runner is getting updated and it's going to be shared very similar to the Tacoma. They've already told us that. Same platform, all that kind of stuff. So
Which
I need
makes
to.
sense.
It makes complete sense. My concern where I get confused here is because the GX 550 is coming out. Well, it makes sense for that to be that could be a Land Cruiser, but at the same time, Land Cruisers always has ended up being big in the states of
Mm-hmm.
more recent. But the way they did the teaser, they showed all the old FJ
I
logos.
know.
When was this going to be more of a Jeep Bronco thing? Is it something
Mm-hmm.
we haven't even considered?
Right.
Okay, that'd be really cool. I'd like that. I could see that working. What I
Mm-hmm.
don't see working is the 4Runner getting revamped, having TRD Pro stuff, being realistically more serious than the GX 550 Overtrail,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's always been more serious than the GX. The GX has always been like the secret overlander secondhand
Mm-hmm.
market. The 4Runner's always been off the lot with a warranty, the overlander, right?
Right.
I don't know that there's enough market space for all three of them because once you max out a 4Runner, you're basically touching base GX price points, right?
Yeah, yeah. If you
So
get a 4Runner, if they make a Trail Hunter version like the Tacoma, I mean,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. You're going to be real close, right? And then because it's going to have leather and ventilated seats and all this crap that we've already seen, which is great. Like, I think it's super cool. I'm actually really excited about the 4Runner, but I don't know how the 4Runner can exist as it is today, as its place in the market, and the Land Cruiser to come in the same relative size, which the GX is very close to the 4Runner. It is a little bigger currently, but not a whole lot bigger. Like, it can function in the same place as the 4Runner. So I think it has to be one of two things. It has to be either bigger, like the 300 series we already have overseas in that wheelhouse. Think smaller Sequoia, but barely, or more off-road focused Sequoia. Now there is a TRD Pro Sequoia already there, so that's also got some competition, but those can exist there. That can actually be deviated enough because it's shorter. Or it has to be a little smaller than 4Runner or a little different than 4Runner. Even if it's not smaller, it's got to be different enough from it. It's got to be like maybe FJ Cruiser style different. Like that existed with the 4Runner. They were the same platform at the time, or virtually the same platform, but they existed in the same market. It might be something like that, but who knows? I don't know.
Man, it is so tricky and hard to guess on what's happening here. There's so many pros and cons that make sense on all three of those options. Let's just
Mm-hmm.
start with the one we like the most. I think we're in agreement. We want if Craig and Brian of Texas Truck Channel podcast or show or Brake Chick show whatever got to decide, all right, which version are we getting? I think we'd be putting our we would
Bronco Killer,
ordering we would
please.
go and put our order in for the FJ40 style one, the Bronco
Yeah,
style, the Wrangler
yeah.
style one. And here's the cons to that. The cons is all the Land Cruiser fanatics would be like, "Ah, we should be getting the same Land Cruiser 300 series that the rest of the globe gets. Why can't we just get that one? That's the one we want. We want to import that one. Like, just give us that one, right?
Yeah,
Especially with the GR badging. That's really cool. The GR badging and making it more off-road focused. That's really cool. They're doing a lot of cool things with the GR
yeah.
badging.
Well, but
Um,
but hang on. In the states, I'm confused about this GR badging in an off-road setting because in the states, GR means the fast sports car.
right?
TRD Pro is what we don't have overseas. That logo is not
And
existing overseas.
and that
We
would be
have that
interesting.
here.
And that's why the 300 series would be if they brought just the 300 series here, it would be really interesting. Do we get the GR badging when
I
we
don't
have
think
TRD
so.
Pros, or do you have the Sequoia with the TRD Pro and you have the Land Cruiser with the GR badging? It would be really almost maybe that's more confusing. I don't know. But let's get back to the one we want. I want and I would love to see the Bronco Wrangler Fighter doors that
Hmm.
come off. roofs
Hmm.
that come off, our roof that it works. Thank you. Sorry, Ford.
Yeah, sorry, Ford.
Windshields
Yeah,
that fold down. That would be cool, and I think would still honor the Land Cruiser Heritage nameplate because that's how it started. And that would be a lot of fun. I don't think it's that, honestly, as much
no,
as I want it to be that. I don't think it's that because it almost feels like Toyota last minute decided to, okay, you know what? Let's just go ahead and bring the Land Cruiser nameplate back. And
here's the here's the problem.
you,
Toyota's really bad at poker. They're the worst liars in the auto industry. And if that was the case, they would have teased it already. And
there'd be
I'll
some,
put it out there. We or you in particular are going to a Toyota product unveiling in Utah
mm,
later in July
mm,
and early August. In that window there, we can't really say all the details. I've got a feeling that's what you're going to see. Whatever Land Cruiser is there. If they had a let's consider this a SEMA style customizable vehicle like that, it would have been leaked already. It just would have already been
we'd have
leaked.
seen either a patent filing, we'd have seen a
Right.
spy
Yes.
shot, we'd have
Yes.
seen some accessory third party person leak some photo by
Right.
accident.
CAD
We haven't
file gets
seen
out.
any of that. I do not. My money is it's not that. I don't
Right.
think it's that.
Same.
As cool as that would be, but everybody's thinking that because of the old badges that they revealed in a little teaser photo. So
Yeah.
I think
But who
that's
knows?
out.
Maybe at the same time, because their teaser photos do lead you down the rabbit trail historically.
Yeah,
They flat out told us in teaser photos, here it is. Here's the actual headlight image. And then
yeah,
a week later, turns out that they weren't tricking you. That's what it
yeah.
was.
Yeah. So who
So I
maybe
don't know. Yeah, maybe.
let's go to the 300 series option. The 300 series option would be compelling and interesting, but all the things we just talked about a minute ago, the brand confusion of TRD and the GR, like it would be really confusing. It would make a lot of sense in that it's already made.
Well,
Just bring it here. What? It's easy. It really is.
I think if it was that, the GR wouldn't come with it. It would just be called the TRD Off Road or TRD
Or Trail
Pro,
Hunter,
Trail
or
Hunter.
yeah,
Yeah,
they'll do
Trail
something like
Hunter's
that.
new. Maybe
Yeah,
that. I think they would leave GR overseas because they don't have TRD Pro overseas
yeah,
like we
good
do
point.
here.
They
So
could easily just do Trail Hunter. Maybe that solves that problem.
yeah.
I Here's the problem with that, and why. Here's reasons why they wouldn't do that. The reason they killed the Land Cruiser to begin with is because it was an overpriced vehicle that nobody bought because it was like 90 something $1,000 at the end of its life.
Yeah, no one bought it.
And
Yeah.
what's the point in that? Now, that would make it the Land Cruiser fanatics are going to say it has to be the same thing that the rest of the globe gets, and it has to be made in Land Cruiser City in Japan, right? It has
Hmm.
to be made in those factories. And if it's not made there, then it's not a real Land Cruiser. I guess. I
Okay.
mean, sure.
Well, they can keep making it there and send it here. That's still an
Sure.
option.
Now, here's I think the prevailing thought is, and in ways makes the most sense, but I don't know. We'll talk to the last option. That is, it's just a rebadged GX550. Reasons that makes sense is they've already got it. They've already got an overland version of that. You could easily put a Toyota badge on it. It's not priced as high as a Land Cruiser 300 series would be, and so maybe they would actually sell more of them. Um, and it's got the same actual footprint. If you compare the dimensions of the GX550 to the old Land Cruiser 200 series, the previous one we just
Hmm.
had, it's
Hmm.
almost exactly the same.
Very
So
close. Yeah.
maybe that does work, and it does have a little bit bigger engine than the Forerunner, so it differentiates from the Forerunner. I mean, that
That's true
almost
because
makes sense.
Forerunner, as we understand it now, this is not an ink, by the way, but the wink we keep getting on in face-to-face conversations is it's going to have the same powertrain as Tacoma, which
Right,
means four-cylinder and four-cylinder hybrid,
right.
turbo options on both. So you're right. The GX550 has the twin turbo V6 and will later have a hybrid option of some sort. We don't know which variant yet. That would kind of make sense. My only concern then, and in fact, that makes the most sense. My question is, where does Forerunner land when it comes out next year? Is it going to be just simply a Tacoma now? Is it actually going to share Tacoma parts now? It's just SUV version. That probably makes some sense. That's probably the
Yeah,
actual answer. But if they make it a little bigger, and because in my mind, the Forerunner could be built on the GX550 platform as well. That's a choice that
yeah,
could also happen. So
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Because they're all the same platform now.
Yeah, or here's what the forums think. The forums think it's going to be a rebadged GX550, and the way you differentiate the Forerunner from the GX550 rebadged Land Cruiser is the Forerunner becomes the Bronco Wrangler fighter. That's that kind of that wild card option.
But
So
isn't it too big?
the Forerunner really becomes no, not really. I mean, the Bronco's big.
Oh,
Broncos,
hang on. Oh, you meant 4Runner becomes okay, not Land Cruiser.
yeah, the
Oh,
Forerunner
okay.
becomes the Bronco
No,
Wrangler fighter, and then your Land Cruiser just becomes a GX550 rebadge. That
that
kind of
actually
makes
makes sense.
sense.
Yeah, because 4Runner
And
is already Bronco Wrangler adjacent.
it
It's not really a
is.
fighter, but it's in that neighborhood.
It's in the neighborhood. If you're considering a Bronco Wrangler, you probably got a Forerunner on your list at some point.
Yeah, which we
So maybe
say all the
that is
time.
what happens. Fun stuff to talk about, fun stuff to speculate about. I'll be honest, the most likely option is the one I don't want it to be because it just doesn't make the most sense, and I don't want rebadge stuff. Let's give us. I want the 300 series or the off-road version. That's what I want, but we'll see.
I know you
So
do, but at the same time, the Sequoia kind of is that. The only problem is the Sequoia doesn't give you like approach angle to go with it.
right,
You have to go aftermarket to make that work, but you
right,
still get the big rear axle like we talked about earlier and all that stuff.
yeah,
So
that's true.
I don't know. I don't want a rebadged Sequoia. That's what I'm telling you. So if it comes over, I
Well,
want it to be a proper LC platform, like you're saying, like the overseas version
yeah,
of it.
yeah.
So
So
um,
well, we'll see. That's what. Look, you're trying to get that sticker pack. Give us a review and put in the comments in there what you think it is.
yeah,
Be curious to get y'all's feedback. It's going to be a lot of fun. We think we'll know soon. We can't share those exact dates, but yeah, maybe in the next month or so, we might have answers to.
yeah,
Well, we're going to have some answers to this, whether it's Forerunner or Land Cruiser. We're going to have some
yeah.
answers to this.
Well, the most I'm excited about is the text answer from you when you're in Utah later. Let me know what it is, whether it's Land Cruiser or not, and if it is, what is it? So I'm
Exactly,
sure we'll
exactly.
have an embargo, but I'll know.
Well, stay tuned. We'll definitely talk about it when we do get the answers, and of course, we'll review one as soon as we can. It'll be a while before we get our hands on all these because we're still waiting to get our hands on a Tacoma, which will be later this year. But
Yep.
fun stuff to talk about. With that, thanks for listening, Brian. You got any final thoughts for everyone?
No, that's it. If you're a Toyota fan and we broke your Sequoia dreams, get over it and check out the Armada. No, kidding. It's a great product. Thanks for listening. And man, I can't wait to hear what you have in Utah. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So, anyways, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you all on the next one.